Close your eyes for a moment. Let the noise of your day fade into silence. The streets outside may still glow with headlights. Politicians may still speak into microphones, and headlines may still scroll across glowing screens. But here, in this room, there's only you, the quiet of night. And a story I will whisper dotted begins with a question you may not want answered. What if the power you see is only theater? What if the speeches of presidents, the laws of parliaments, even the blessings of popes, are lines recited by actors? What if the real script has been written elsewhere, in hidden salons and centuries-old contracts, by families who never left the stage, but simply stepped behind the curtain? They are called the Black Nobility. Their names do not echo in classrooms, but linger in footnotes, in crumbling archives, in the gilded pages of old ledgers. They are said to be families who traded crowns for banks, titles for trusts, battles for whispers. Their genius is not victory in war, but survival in silence. Some call it conspiracy. Others call it continuity. Whatever the truth, the story of the Black Nobility feels less like history and more like an old play that never ends. The characters change, the costumes are new, but the families remain so tonight. Let me tell you their story. Slowly, gently, like a lantern carried down a forgotten stairwell. I will guide you into corridors where marble glitters, where masks conceal faces, where letters slip beneath doors at night, and where a candle never burns out. You do not need to believe every word. Some parts are fact, some are legend, some are merely patterns that whisper louder than proof. But listen anyway. Let the rhythm of the tale carry you. Let curiosity mix with drowsiness. And if your eyes close, do not worry. The story will still be here, waiting in the shadows. Now, take a breath. The night is long, and our journey begins. Imagine a grand theater. The velvet curtains are heavy, the stage is polished, the chandeliers shimmer like captured stars. Upon the stage, rulers appear. Kings crowned with gold, presidents with solemn hands raised, bishops in robes of scarlet. They speak, they decree, they command. The crowd applauds, the newspapers record, the history books write. But backstage? Backstage is darker. The audience does not see the men and women who own the theater, who fund the scripts, who decide which actor plays which role. The faces may change, but the play continues. This is how the legend of the Black Nobility frames power as performance. What we are shown may be real, but incomplete. The real levers are quieter, less visible. They are pulled not by presidents or popes, but by dynasties with names that rarely reach the surface. Think of it this way: a president serves a term. A family serves a century. A king dies. A dynasty survives through sons, daughters, marriages, and trusts. A bishop preaches. A noble patron decides which cathedral is built, which artist is paid, which priest is promoted. The illusion is not that power does not exist, but that it resides in the hands we are told to watch. Like a magician's trick, attention is drawn to the right hand, while the left hand holds the secret. For the listener, the unsettling thought is this: perhaps democracy, monarchy, even revolution are not the full story. Perhaps the actors change, presidents replaced, kings overthrown, popes buried, while the true writers of the script remain the same. And if that is so, then what does it mean for us, the audience, clapping in the dark? Before the phrase Black Nobility was ever coined, there were families whose histories reached so far back they seemed eternal. In Rome, the Orsini, Colonna, Farnese, Aldobrandini, names spoken with reverence and fear. Their secret was not armies, though some commanded them. It was not crowns, though some wore them. Their true weapon was marriage, a son betrothed to the niece of a cardinal, a daughter promised to the cousin of a king, a dowry large enough to buy loyalty, yet small enough to look modest. Piece by piece, marriage became the architecture of empire. The church was never immune. Popes rose from these families, Cardinals were nephews, abbots were cousins. Even when robes were white or red, the blood beneath them was noble. In Renaissance Italy, the line between sacred and profane was as thin as silk. One day, a nobleman might fund a chapel, his coat of arms carved above its door. The next day, his nephew was ordained bishop, blessed not only by God, but by the family's wealth. And so through centuries, these names endured. Kings lost crowns. Nations split. Empires collapsed. But the families bent, never broke. As you listen, imagine ivy on an old wall. Wars are like storms, governments like seasons. But ivy clings year after year, quietly, stubbornly. That ivy is the bloodline of the Black Nobility, the Papal conclave. One of the most mysterious ceremonies in history. The doors of the Sistine Chapel close. The world waits for smoke, black or white. Cardinals pray, vote, whisper. To outsiders, it seems divine, but history remembers stranger details. One conclave in the 19th century, a liberal cardinal was favored to win. Then, overnight, his support vanished. A letter, unsigned, accused him of dangerous ties. No one admitted to writing it, but the effect was fatal. His career collapsed. Another candidate, aligned with a powerful family, rose in his place. This is the velvet knife, a strike that leaves no blood, only silence. A rumor, a suggestion, a shadow on reputation. No armies needed, no coup required. Just a whisper at the right moment. The Black Nobility, legend says, mastered this art. They did not need to control conclaves directly. They only needed influence, a patron here, a nephew there, a promise of land, or the forgiveness of a debt. For centuries, conclaves were battlegrounds not of theology, but of dynasties. The smoke may have been white, but behind it were fingerprints that no archive could prove. Yet no rumor could erase. As you drift towards sleep. Imagine the chapel, frescoes glowing, candles flickering, voices hushed. And somewhere, a letter slides under a door, changing history without leaving a trace. Now let us sail to Venice, a city of masks, canals, and shadows. By day, merchants bargain, gondoliers sing, masks glitter in the markets. By night, whispers travel across water. In 1297, Venice passed the Serrata del Maggiore Consiglio. The Great Council, once open, was closed. From then on, only certain noble families could sit in government. It was a firewall of blood. Imagine the effect, a republic, but only in name. Outsiders could never enter. The same surnames, generation after generation, made the laws, ran the banks, commanded the fleets. But unlike Florence, where the Medici boasted with palaces and paintings, Venice preferred quiet. The city's elite did not carve their names in stone. They wrote them in ledgers, hidden in basements, signed with initials or aliases. Their wealth came from trade, spices, silk, ships. But their true genius was finance. Loans to kings, credit to monarchs, debts negotiated in candlelit rooms where names were never spoken aloud. Venice became a laboratory of secrecy, a place where power wore masks, not only at carnivals, but in boardrooms. Even now when you close your eyes, can you hear the water lapping against stone? The laughter of masked dancers above and below them, the scratching of pens on parchment, writing debts that would outlast empires. The centuries turn. Thrones fall, revolutions roar, monarchs lose heads. But the Black Nobility does not disappear. They adapt. Once, they commanded knights. Now they command contracts. Once, they owned palaces. Now they own foundations. Once, they wielded swords. Now they wield seals pressed into wax. A palace seized by revolution, its mineral rights quietly transferred to a cousin's trust. A title mocked by republics. The same family appears as a cultural patron, funding museums and schools. A war lost? Investments shifted into banks across borders. They discovered something profound. Crowns may fall, but capital endures. Armies may vanish, but paperwork persists. And so, while revolutions tore across Europe, while kings fled, while new flags were raised, the Black Nobility remained. Not always visible, rarely named, but always present, always adapting. As you breathe slowly, think of a sword hung on a wall. Dust gathers. It is no longer sharp, but beside it lies a seal, pressed into ink. And the seal, not the sword, writes the future. By now, you may have noticed a pattern. These families thrive not by roaring, but by whispering. Their true empire was built not with armies, but with instruments of silence. The machinery was elegant, trusts that disguised ownership, stretching across borders and centuries. A vineyard, a palace, a collection of jewels, all placed into legal shells that no revolution could touch. Foundations that seemed charitable, funding art schools, even hospitals, but quietly ensuring influence in governments and churches. Family offices, discreet as candlelight, where wealth moved invisibly from one generation to the next. Shell companies with neutral names, Sanctum Holdings, Europa Investimenti, that masked the crests and coats of arms behind them. And always, marriages, the oldest tool of all, weaving new alliances when old thrones fell. What is remarkable is not simply that they did this, but how naturally it seemed to unfold. Like water finding cracks, influence slipped through the shifting stones of history. Imagine a government collapsing, a king exiled, a republic roaring with slogans. And yet, in some quiet office, the papers were already signed, the properties transferred, the titles converted into charitable boards. The families smiled politely, offered support to the new order, and never lost their place. Silence is a shield. Where oligarchs crave fame, where politicians chase votes, where businessmen hunger for headlines, the Black Nobility understood a different truth. To endure, one must vanish into the background. So tonight, as your breathing slows, picture the machinery at work, invisible gears turning, not in iron, but in parchment and trust law. You cannot hear them. You cannot see them. Yet their rhythm is steady, quiet, eternal. Every legend collects shadows, and the Black Nobility is no exception. For centuries, stories have lingered, half history, half nightmare. There's the tale of a banker found hanging beneath Blackfriars Bridge in London, whispered to be God's banker, entangled in Vatican finances. Was it suicide? Or a warning? There are the conclaves where promising cardinals suddenly lost favor, their reputations destroyed by unsigned letters or mysterious rumors. No one confessed. No one needed to. There are whispers of palaces where candles never go out, rooms where decisions are made by unseen hands. Some say the wax never melts, the flame never flickers, yet shadows move across the walls. Fear grows in silence. When no one can prove, imagination takes the reins. And perhaps that is part of the power, to exist half in fact, half in myth, until both become indistinguishable. Even historians feel the unease. In archives, they find names recurring, trusts repeating, documents aligning. Nothing illegal, nothing overt, yet unsettling in its persistence. As you drift, let the shadows stretch gently across your thoughts. They are not here to frighten you, only to remind you. What is hidden often feels larger than it is. But perhaps that is the genius. Silence leaves room for fear to do the work. Let us pause for a moment. In the stillness of night, skepticism deserves its place. Not all scholars accept the legend of the Black Nobility. Some argue that noble families lost far more than they preserved. Many went bankrupt. Others dissolved into obscurity, their lands sold, their titles mocked. The idea of a unified black aristocracy might be less reality and more a tale spun by critics of the church, or conspiracy writers seeking patterns in shadows. And they may be right. History is rarely as neat as legend. Much of what is told about the Black Nobility is circumstantial, repeating surnames, coincidences of influence, patterns that may mean little. But consider this: continuity itself is suspicious. When the same names appear across centuries, in art foundations, in heritage trusts, in Vatican donations, in discrete real estate holdings, the mind begins to wonder. The skeptic says, "This is coincidence." The believer says, "This is conspiracy." Perhaps the truth lies in the middle, that old families, like old trees, simply learn how to bend with the wind. They may not secretly rule the world, but they endure in ways ordinary families cannot. As you listen, let skepticism soothe you. Not every whisper is proof. Not every shadow hides a monster. Sometimes ivy clings not because it is plotting, but because that is simply what ivy does. And yet, the pattern lingers. The world today seems far from Renaissance Rome or masked Venice. And yet, echoes remain. Walk into a museum, and you may see a plaque. This exhibition funded by the Orsini Trust. Step into a university library, and the name above the door belongs to an ancient house. Attend a Vatican conference, and behind the scenes, donations come from families who have been giving for 5 centuries. Modern descendants rarely flaunt their wealth. You will not see them on Forbes lists. Their assets are not in yachts or skyscrapers, but in land. Vineyards, art collections, discrete portfolios. Some run cultural boards. Some chair heritage foundations. Some manage family offices in Switzerland or Luxembourg. Their role is less ruler and more curator of continuity. But continuity itself is power. Governments fall. Markets crash. Leaders rise and fall. Yet these families endure, not always strong, but always present. This is perhaps the most unsettling echo. The Black Nobility no longer needs to rule openly. It is enough that they remain. Memory, silence, and patience do the work. As you breathe slowly, imagine walking past an old villa. It seems a museum, open to the public. But hidden in paperwork, it is still owned by a trust, managed by a descendant you will never meet. The villa has seen emperors rise and fall, revolutions march, wars rage, yet it still belongs to the same line. That is continuity. That is endurance. That is the whisper of the Black Nobility. And so our journey nears its end. We have wandered through Rome's palaces, Venice's canals, Swiss banks, and Vatican halls. We have listened to whispers in conclaves and traced signatures in hidden trusts. The curtain is falling now. The stage grows quiet. But before we leave, one last question remains. Do they rule us still? Perhaps not as emperors or popes. Perhaps not with armies or decrees. But maybe their power lies in something deeper, the ability to endure while others fade. Think of history as a river. Governments are like waves, rising and crashing. But the Black Nobility? They are the stones beneath, unmoved by the current, shaping its flow quietly, endlessly. You may never meet them. You may never see their names in headlines. But when policies seem curiously stable, when old estates never change hands, when museums quietly bear forgotten crests, you may sense them. Like shadows at the edge of vision, they do not need the stage anymore. They own the theater. And now, as night deepens, the curtain closes. The story is told. The halls of Venice fade. The frescoes of Rome dim. The ledgers close. The candle flickers low. Whether you believe in the Black Nobility or not, the lesson is the same. Power loves silence. Influence endures when it hides. And memory, passed from one generation to the next, is more powerful than crowns. You need not fear them tonight. They are not here to haunt you. They are here as a reminder. What is unseen often matters more than what is visible. So breathe deeply. Let the whispers fade into the dark. The ivy clings to the wall. The candle burns in the palazzo. The trust is signed and sealed. But here, in your room, there's only rest. Sleep well. For even if power endures in silence, your dreams belong only to you.